Retro.
Are you an aspiring Jedi, or do you dabble with the dark side of the Force?
Regardless of whether you fancy yourself a defender of the light or an aspiring Sith Lord, you're going to need a lightsaber.
Podcast Stardust is pleased to partner with Saber Masters, the creators of high-quality, durable, and affordable lightsabers.
Saber Masters is preparing to launch the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0, and right now you can get 2 for the price of 1.
So, check out the link in our show notes and go get your Ultimate Lightsabers from Saber Masters.
And don't forget to use our referral code Stardust to save $10 at checkout.
And each purchase using our referral code helps support Podcast Stardust.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, voice of Hera and Rook Cast, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continually unexpected.
Hello, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And it's Friday, so we're going to be kicking off the weekend with some Star Wars news. You may be thinking this is, we just had some news, and yeah, we did. It was on Monday, but we're getting back into our regular schedule now that the Acolyte's over. So before we get into the news, Jay, we just want to remind everybody what our social media presence is.
Absolutely. One thing is constant. You can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is aligned. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield's down. We're now broadcasting to the galaxy. So it's not a busy news week right now. And as a matter of fact, the day we're recording this, the 25th of July, Comic-Con just kicked off. Mm-hmm. So perhaps there'll be something to talk about next week in the news. We'll find out. But they kind of spilled the Star Wars news for Comic-Con early this week by announcing the next era of Star Wars comics. And Jay, it started with a teaser image of the melted Darth Vader helmet from The Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. And it has a little banner that says, the final battle of the Galactic Civil War begins. And then at the bottom, it says a new era of Star Wars comics book storytelling, October 2024. So we already knew that Star Wars and Darth Vader's runs were going to end with issues 50, which is, I believe, happening pretty soon here, August or September. I can't remember exactly when. And would bring us up to Return of the Jedi in the world of comics. So they are now jumping past that by giving us a story that leads up to the Battle of Jakku. So before we kind of dive into some of the excerpts and stuff to get a better idea what this is all about, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I'd love to know who did the artwork for this little teaser image / poster, because it's, as soon as I saw it, I was like, what? Wait, what are we doing here? Because as you pointed out, it's definitely, Force Awakens Vader helmet going on, but it's got these wisps of smoke that are coming off of it. So it looks very fresh, And so, yeah, I'm really excited for this because, we were talking about what kind of comic series sorts of focuses or foci focuses. What is it, Latin? I don't know. Anyway, so what we would like to see, and this is kind of a surprise, but a welcome one to be sure.
Yeah, I wanted them to move the story forward. I just wasn't expecting it to be that. I was I was expecting more stuff around the Mandalorian, I guess, right. Is what I was really thinking. And I kind of ruled out in my mind anything past the Rise of Skywalker simply because they're not going to do anything to jeopardize any storytelling for the movies. So, but this makes sense. My only question is, how is this going to intersect with the Aftermath trilogy and the Alphabet Squadron trilogy? Because both those stories end with the Battle of Jakku.
Yes, they do. And I had forgotten about Alphabet Squadron, quite honestly, because that was a series that just did not resonate with me, and that's okay. But Aftermath actually did come to mind, and I thought, ooh, I wonder if Chuck Wendig had any, kind of consultation on any of this and how it is going to line up with that. So I'm glad we're on the same kind of mental page there.
Yeah, Chuck Wendig was the first person I thought of, and I was scouring the internet to see if he had any involvement with this at all, because he essentially created the Battle of Jakku. I mean,
Yeah.
or I should say fleshed it out anyways. The whole
Hmm.
notion of Battle of Jakku was created for The Force Awakens, and he didn't have anything to do with that, but he gave us the story about what that was all about. And I can't even
Exactly.
remember the Imperial villain's name off the top of my head that kind of orchestrated all that. But that was the last stand of the Empire
Hmm.
when it came down to it. Okay, so let's get into some of the announcements that have come out of this, and it all starts with a press release. And you want to go ahead and read that for us?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Mhm.
So, Star Wars Battle of Jakku Insurgency Rising will be the first of 3 limited series centered around the never before told final moments of the Galactic Civil War. First introduced in Star Wars The Force Awakens as Rey scavenged amongst its wreckage, the Battle of Jakku was a pivotal turning point for the galaxy. On the sandy dunes of Jakku, the remnants of the Empire made their desperate last stand after their secret base was discovered by the rebellion, who were determined to destroy them once and for all so that the new republic can thrive. Now, fans will witness this pivotal moment in Star Wars canon for the first time ever. Starring core characters like Luke and Leia, as well as new heroes and villains who were instrumental during this thrilling period, the 3 Battle of Jakku series will bridge the gap between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy like never before, revealing key insights behind the aftermath there's that word, aftermath, of the
Mhm.
Battle of Endor and the Empire's demise, including the Emperor's secret contingency plans, and introduce the shocking power hungry threats that emerge during this time of uncertainty.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to quibble with them just a little bit, but this is like, the first time that we've seen this. No, we just talked about this. It was in Aftermath and Alphabet Squadron. We saw this
Mhm.
battle. So we're going to be getting it from a different angle. Okay, I help me out here. When was the Battle of Jakku? I mean, do you
Well, the
remember?
the original Battle of Jakku would have been right after, not quite right after, Return of the Jedi. There was like a and it's after Mandalorian, so there's probably what, 10 years maybe?
Well, okay, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I should have done that beforehand instead of putting you on the spot. But
No, you're
it was
fine. I was just trying to get my mental
five.
self together.
Yeah, but they have it as 5 ABY here on Wikipedia. So that really would be like a year
Oh, wow.
after Return of the Jedi. So it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So some thoughts. We they also go on to talk about her starring core characters like Luke and Leia, as well as new heroes and villains who were instrumental role during this time period. Okay. Well, Han and Leia were in the second Aftermath book back
Mhm.
in the day. And in fact, Chewbacca was as well, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. I feel like they've got a lot to weave together here on this.
Yes.
I'm very excited for this comic. I really am. But I'm just kind of scratching my head a little bit because, look, I don't want to play some game like they're suddenly going to rewrite canon, because I don't believe that for a second is what they're going to do. Aftermath trilogy was, such an essential set of books back when
Mhm.
the canon was reset, that I can't see them just wiping it out and not even saying anything about doing that.
Right. No, I
However,
agree.
yeah, despite the fact that the second one had Han in it, they really were about other characters.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nora Wexley and Temmin, and who go on to become Snap Wexley and others in that.
Exactly. And Ray
So
Sloan, is that who you were trying to think of?
she was in it, but there was one of the Emperor's advisors that was kind of engineering this whole thing that was going to start in Jakku and destroy the whole galaxy. Um, and I can't
Ah,
think of his
okay.
name off the top of my head. And unfortunately, that book is on my top bookshelf, which I cannot reach without a ladder. So can't pull
I know I'm
that down.
looking at it right now. It's
Mhm.
just out of reach.
Yeah. And then the other thing about all that was, it kind of teased like the rise of the First Order there at the end of Aftermath as well.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so there was all of that. But I am excited to get to know what Leia, Luke, Han and the rest were really up to during this time period, because I feel like we only got the, scratch the surface with Leia, because my memory was she was pregnant in that second Aftermath book.
Yes. Because she was
So,
starting to feel pulls of, what would become Ben,
mhm,
at the time with through the Force. I remember that just as
yeah,
a mom that stood out to me.
right. And of course, right after Return of the Jedi, we had the Princess and the Scoundrel book, which we just
Yes.
talked about last year, which
Uh-huh.
is about Han and Leia's marriage. Which, okay, but this brings us to, before I get into some of the synopses we got for each one of the comics, the other thing to note here is that it's essentially a maxi series. We're getting three limited series of 4 issues each. And this one's the Battle of Jakku Insurgency, and then there'll be 2 other limited series coming out. And the timing of this is like they're coming out like every 2 weeks, so they're putting these first 4 out real quickly. The timeline for that is October 2nd is the first issue, October 16th, October 30th, and then 1 week later, November 6th, and we're done with the first 4 issues
Wow,
in this
that really is
series.
boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna put it right out there for us. All right, well, let's take a look at some of the synopses that we got for the books, and we should also note that this is being written by Alex Segura, who previously wrote Poe Dameron Freefall, and the art comes from a collection of various artists, including Leonard Kirk, Stefano Raphael, Jethro Morales, and then our favorite Phil Noto is doing the covers, so that'll be pretty
Nice.
cool.
Yes.
Summary for issue number 1. A defiant Imperial takes center stage and goes on the offensive against the New Republic. Leia makes a startling discovery in the forests of Endor. Who are the mysterious and deadly acolytes of the Beyond? What is the new villain's connection to Darth Vader?
Hmm.
So that was like 4
Acolytes?
sentences, and there's a lot to discuss right there. Which
Yeah.
one? What do you want to start?
Well, of course, acolytes just jumps out
Mhm.
to me. I mean, is that just a convenient word usage, or is that something that actually harkens back to the acolyte?
It harkens back to the Aftermath trilogy. Chuck Wendig created the Acolytes of the Beyond.
That's
Uh,
true. That's right.
So that gives a little bit of our answer about whether or not they're incorporating his work, I
Oh my gosh,
suppose,
I completely forgot about that. How can I forget that? Yes.
because they're the ones that were like breaking in somewhere to steal what they believe to be Darth Vader's
Mhm.
lightsaber.
That's right. Oh
So
gosh. We're gonna have to reread these books. Maybe that's something we need to do ahead of these is dive back into them and then review them again before the comics.
I don't know that I could read all 3 of those books before October.
I know. Yeah, I dream big. I
Yeah.
put things out there and I get all excited. So I don't
Maybe
know,
we
but
read the last one before these come out in
we'll do the
October.
spark notes. Yes. Yeah, the last
Yeah.
one. Maybe that's a good idea.
Well, stay tuned, everybody. We'll figure out if we're going to revisit those or not. Because we did, yeah. Did we even review those on Starship Sabers and Scoundrels? I can't remember.
Gosh, I don't know.
I
It's
feel like
been
maybe the last book we did. I don't know that we did the first 2.
maybe. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that aside, over. I'm curious what Leia has discovered in the Forest of Endor, and when she discovered it,
Hmm.
because she got married right after the Battle of Endor, and then was off on her honeymoon. So, did she come back?
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm thinking she probably did maintain some pretty close bonds with the Ewoks,
Mhm.
and maybe she went back there for, who knows? Maybe they left some things there after the wedding and she had to go back and gather them.
I guess go back and get her dress that they gave her.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Summary for issue 2. Mon Mothma and Leia must make a difficult decision to deal with a defiant Imperial hell-bent on preserving the legacy of Palpatine and Vader. Luke hunts for a lost Jedi relic, but makes a startling discovery. The underworld simmers with intrigue as an unholy alliance is formed. A ragtag group of New Republic heroes sets out on a mission, and the return is not guaranteed. Okay, so a couple of interesting things there. I don't know what the difficult decision that Mon Mothma and Leia have to make, but it also occurred to me, also like right around this time we had, what was it, Operation Cinder?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had Leia running off to Naboo to save that world, and we had various other things going on around the galaxy as the Emperor tried to. So I wonder if Operation Cinder is part of this as well.
Oh gosh, that'd be cool. And again, knitting some of these things together
Hmm.
for sure.
And then, so Luke hunts for a lost Jedi relic, but makes a strong discovery. No way of really knowing what that is at the moment.
Yeah, that kind of
The,
piques my interest. What's the Jedi relic?
yeah, the underworld simmers with intrigue as an unholy alliance is formed. Okay, so the cover that they previewed for this has Bib Fortuna on it.
Oh,
So
okay.
that makes a certain amount of sense that they're going
Mm-hmm.
to incorporate him in the aftermath of what happened there, once Jabba died in Return of the Jedi. And so I guess that kind of grounds us here right before Boba Fett returns. So there's that.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask too. So because The Mandalorian takes place, what, 9 years after ABY? I'm trying to think. So I'm trying to see where maybe this is setting up some of that, from the Book of Boba Fett too. As you just said,
Yeah. Good
and
call.
how that might knit together.
9 ABY. So
Okay.
yeah, that's further 4 years out. So yeah. So Bib Fortuna is going to get the flounder for a few years, is what we're finding out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, issue 3. The summary is, who is the mysterious mysterious Reina Oscur, and what does her influence over the Defiant Imperial mean for the New Republic? Does the Defiant Imperial have an Inquisitor by his side? Our villain consolidates his power, but at what cost? An iconic, familiar face arrives to save the captured heroes. So that's one thing I forgot to mention. In other places, we know that those New Republic heroes that are set out on a mission, they're led by Kes Dameron.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, giving us another tie to The Force Awakens, Poe Dameron's dad and all that. Now, Kes has also shown up in the Star Wars comics that take place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So he's not really a new hero, but I'm curious to see who the iconic familiar face is going to be that arrives to save the captured heroes, which I'm assuming is Kes Dameron and his compatriots.
Now, remind me what did they when they're talking about this Defiant Imperial? Is that a group of people, or is that what is that? Consolidate behind the Defiant Imperial. So is that just like a little sect?
No, if you look at the link that I have in our notes, it'll take you to to a story about this, and then you'll
Okay,
see this guy with black hair, beard, and mustache.
I see
And
him. Okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
that I'm pretty sure is who they're talking about, and he features in a number of the covers that Phil Noto has put together there.
So
So
is this Reina Oskar the one that's got these tentacle kind of prosthetics almost coming out of her cheeks?
I'm assuming so. And now I gotta wonder do you remember back in Legends there were the characters that were kind of the vampires that would use those tentacles and like send them up people's noses to like?
Oh.
I'm wondering if she's one of those.
Oh my gosh. That would be cool to bring back a little Legends in there too.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. So I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. This is fun to think about because there's
Yeah,
so
it
much
is.
going on here.
Yeah, there's
Um,
actually a better side view of her on the last number 4
yeah,
in
that's what I was
Zoba's
looking at.
Rising.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's a suggestion of an Inquisitor as
Yeah.
well. So that makes me wonder. I mean, are we talking about the Inquisitor we saw in Ahsoka, or somebody else, or what's going on there? That would explain how we might have Inquisitors still around later. That
Mhm.
could be an explanation there.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is gonna be a really cool series.
Hmm.
I'm
So
excited.
so we got issue 4's description, which is Luke versus a new Inquisitor. The Imperial survivors consolidate behind the Defiant Imperial, putting the just formed New Republic at risk. Kes Dameron and his team try for a daring escape, but meet an unexpected hurdle. The Galactic Civil War takes a startling twist, and bad omens arise for the future of the New Republic. So I mean, it doesn't seem like these 4 issues end at the Battle of Jakku, is the way I'm reading this. But it certainly is setting up the power dynamic that's going to get us there eventually. But what's your
Mhm.
take?
Oh, no, I agree with you. I think and I'm really excited to see how, like you said, it's gonna all knit together. Very
Yeah.
cool. And I'm glad that they're giving
Mm.
us fresh stories because, with our big 3, Luke, Leia, and Han, because I was
Mhm.
kind of wondering how much more we were gonna get to go back to the well on that one and
Yeah.
have it feel right. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you can go back to the well and it's just kind of not as good as you hoped it would be, but I mean, these sound really awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, they largely let the comics tell the stories of Luke, Leia, and Han. I mean, there's
Mhm.
been some books, but the bulk of the storytelling in the new canon has been through the comics for them. And they super saturated the time period from A New Hope all the way to the Return of the Jedi with stories. So there's not a lot of breathing space to
Yeah.
put more stories in there for them. So giving us an opportunity to see these three, I hope, be a big three again would be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Very
You know,
cool.
the other thing is that I'm kind of getting a vibe similar to the Heir to the Empire trilogy with this. And I'm not talking about Thrawn. We already know how he's coming back into the story, courtesy of Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and all that. But just this is exactly what we're talking about right now. The big three and their adventures after Return of the Jedi, taking on, some new Imperial warlord that's risen to power and is rallying everyone behind him. That, not using the word Thrawn, but it sounds an awful lot like what the Heir to the Empire was.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. So I'm digging that. I can't wait to see these comics.
For
But
sure.
that's not all we got in the way of announcements. So we've also got the announcement of the prequel trilogy graphic novels that will be arriving on November 12th. And we'll be getting an adaptation from Dark Horse for The Phantom Menace, one for Attack of the Clones, and another for Revenge of the Sith. Pretty cool. I
Yeah.
like this idea.
Oh, me too. And you know me, I always like the graphic novels. And I
Hmm.
mean, especially Padme's, I'm going to the fashion well here, but
Hmm.
all of her outfits were inspired by a lot of the Far Eastern traditions. And so it's
Hmm.
really cool to see them adapted in this way.
Indeed, indeed. And then for the High Republic fans, we get our next manga with Edge of Balance Premonition. And on the cover, we've got Yoda, I'm assuming, fighting and destroying the weapons of a bunch of Nile, because we don't actually see them other than their hands and their broken weapons.
Hmm.
And I think that's supposed to be one of the Nameless in the background.
That's what I interpreted. Yep.
All right. So we're going to have to wait for this
Cool.
one. It's not coming out till April 8th, 2025. But I am eager
Interesting.
for that, especially getting to see Yoda really get into action in this time period. He was big in phase 2, but he hasn't been as big a player in phases 1 and 3. So,
Yeah. Not so much, at least yet, here in phase 3.
and then the last thing we have an announcement is the Star Wars Cyclopedia is arriving November 5th. Of course, our friend Dan Zare was just on our last episode, and he's one of the authors on that. So, yeah, it's got a pretty cool cover with Luke in the background. It's got Ahsoka right above the Star Wars title in the middle of it. It's got the Mandalorian, various prequel, sequel, and original trilogy characters all over the place. So yeah, looks pretty nice.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't realize that there was a forward in here by Rosario Dawson either.
Hmm.
I noticed that up in the corner, which is very cool.
Yeah, so be looking for that on November 5th.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got for news. Like I said, it's not a whole lot, but I got to tell you, I'm really excited for the Battle of Jakku comics. I
Me.
think those will be a lot of fun. So once they've had an opportunity to get out and everyone's had a chance to read them, you and I will have to cover those here on the show.
Oh, for sure. That's a no-brainer.
Indeed. All right. Well, then, I just want to say thank you to you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and our look at this week's Star Wars news. We hope you've enjoyed the discussion. And if you want to get our take on the news on a weekly basis, make sure you hit that subscribe button on your podcast of choice, and you'll get the news. You'll get our reviews of whatever Star Wars series is on Disney Plus, our discussions of other books, comics, and wide-ranging discussions that we have here on Podcast Stardust.
Mhm.
You can find our entire catalog of shows over on retrozap.com, which is home to the entire network, including great podcasts such as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files, Doomcast, Love, Death, and Robots Plus, and Superhero Suite. If you're looking to help us out, we would love it if you could leave us a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice, especially if you have Apple Podcasts. That's the number one site for helping the show grow. And it never hurts to share the show on social media with your friends. That word of mouth means a lot to us. We really appreciate it. Jay, I want to remind everybody one more time what our social media contacts are and where else we can find around the internet.
Of course, always my pleasure. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Podcast Stardust. And we do maintain some Pinterest boards, so you can find tons of Star Wars ideas, fashion, lifestyle, and such over there. And we do have 2 different YouTube outlets where you can find all of our episodes. We are on the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So head over to both of those, like, subscribe, and share those out. And those also do support reviews and some interaction as well. So we'd love to see you over there. And then if you're up for some real-time chatter, we do have a Discord room on the RetroZap Discord server. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the link in our show notes. And while you're there, you can also check out all of the other rooms for the RetroZap shows shows that Dennis was just running down for you as well. And if you're in need of some new gear or swag from Podcast Stardust, we have 7 different show logo designs available over on TeePublic. So once again, hit up the link in our show notes and it'll take you right to where you need to go. And every purchase does help to support the show. So we would love to see some of those goods out in the wild. And if you do happen to snag something, make sure you take a picture and tag us, and we'll be sure to share it back out. And you can also support us by our partnership with Saber Masters. So if you are in need of a new lightsaber, battle ready, or just for show, there's plenty of them over there to choose from. So you can head to sabermasters.com or go to, once again, the link in our show notes, and it'll take you right to where you need to go. And as you are shopping, make sure once you are done with your cart, you also add the code STARDUST, which will get you an extra $10 off of your purchase. And once again, does help to support the show. So with that, Dennis, why don't you let everybody know what you've got going on in other podcasting adventures around the interwebs?
So right now, not a whole lot's going on. My wife, Beth, and I are waiting for the 5th and final season of Star Trek Lower Decks, which we'll be covering on Warp Trails, which is our RetroZap podcast feed exclusive show devoted to Star Trek. And yeah, we'll be covering Lower Decks when it gets here, I think at the end of August. I can't remember exactly, but we're excited for that and can't wait to talk about it. Jay, I know there's always things going on with cosplay, so what is the latest?
Yeah, right now it's kind of the calm before the storm. So I've got a lot on my potential and what's the other word I'm looking for? Anyways, on my calendar right now. And so fall is definitely going to be really, really busy. But in the meantime, you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay, as one of my many different cosplay adventures. So I am Ahsoka from Clone Wars, Hera from both Rebels and the Ahsoka series, as well as the fourth sister Inquisitor, speaking of Inquisitors, and my original concept Mandalorian. I am the High Fae Queen, among other things. So it's a great group, a great community over there, and it's a lot of fun. So check it out at j.snipscosplay.
All right, upcoming on the show on Monday, we're getting back into the High Republic with a discussion of the latest adult novel, Temptation of the Force. And then on Wednesday, it is the monthly lifestyle and fashion product review roundup by Jay, World Between Worlds. So with that, just want to say thanks for listening to episode 760 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with you.